Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Emergency Management Associates, coming to you from the Area Command 392 miles west of Kitty Hawk Beach, North Carolina. We want to welcome everybody to our show tonight. First off, I want to talk about earthquakes, guys. If any of you have already been on the USGS site, again, I'm telling you, USGS is full of crap. They're full of crap. They say there's 287 earthquakes worldwide. There are a lot more earthquakes than that. I'm going to say triple that number. Triple that number. We're talking probably close to 900 earthquakes worldwide. USGS is only touching the bare minimum. They're just touching nothing. Okay? First off, going over to the Philippines, okay? I hate to even go here. Over just off the northeast coast of Mindanao, Philippines, there's another 5.0 earthquake right now. That earthquake hit at 6:43 a.m. this morning Eastern Time. A 5.0 large earthquake. There has been damage. There is some injury. It was literally right next to the coast, 2 kilometers, not more than 1 mile off the coast of Tandag, Tandag, Philippines. That's close. That's very close. There's also several islands out in that area too. I believe that energy hit those islands too. Now, while it might not have been a 5.0 earthquake in those islands, it was close to it. There has been some injury over in Tandag City, Philippines, off the northeast coast of Philippines. Minor injuries, but injuries nonetheless. This area had a 9.0 earthquake here just over 2 months ago. We're still seeing large earthquakes hitting this area, at least once a week. We have a lot more earthquakes than that today. USGS is showing one large earthquake. They're full of crap. Okay? They're full of crap. Also over in the southern Pacific Ocean, Kokopo, Papua New Guinea. This is a very popular area for large, very strong, and major earthquakes. Today, over in Kokopo, Indonesia, actually late last night, at approximately 11:16 p.m. Eastern Time, they had a large 5.4 earthquake, 145 kilometers beneath the surface, just barely off the coast of Kokopo, Indonesia. Since then, we've also had aftershocks from that quake. USGS is only covering one aftershock. There have been at least a dozen aftershocks from that 5.4 earthquake in Kokopo, Indonesia. Going west, going east. Panguna, Papua New Guinea. A moderate 4.4 earthquake hit there. This earthquake was 398 kilometers deep. Rebecca is in our chat right now. Okay? This is big. This was very big. Demon Catman says 5 by 5 here, try and go in and out and come back in. Those people that are not able to get this program or having buffering, try leaving and coming right back. That usually helps the situation. But this 4.4 moderate quake in Papua New Guinea today was 398 kilometers deep. Folks, this only means that there's going to be a much larger earthquake, close to a 5.4, 5.3, 5.4. I'm even going up to a 5.5 earthquake. This 4.4 is going to propagate a much stronger and a much shallower earthquake. 5.4 earthquake in Panguna, Papua New Guinea. We go out to the east, okay? I want to go over to the Pacific Islands. South of the Fiji Islands, we had a 4.6 earthquake happen there. This was also a very deep earthquake. This is 565 kilometers deep. So this 4.6 here is going to propagate at least a 5.7, 5.8 large earthquake, a mid-range 5 earthquake. This could happen, this earthquake could take place in the Loyalty Islands, it could take place in the Fiji Islands, it could take place in Vanuatu or the Solomon Islands, or even in Tonga. Or it could end up in New Zealand. Okay? A mid-range 5 coming here very soon in this area. Okay? That's a 4.6 over there in the south of Fiji. Going south to the Kermadec Islands today. They had another 4.4 there. This happened at 2:43 a.m. this morning Eastern Time. This earthquake was 381 kilometers deep. Again, this is a semi-deep earthquake. As a result of this deep earthquake, we're going to have at least a 5.3 earthquake as a result of this today. So far, we're going to have at least a 5.1, a 5.3, and even upwards of a 5.7, 5.8 earthquake as a result of these 3 earthquakes in the South Pacific today. That's quite a deal, isn't it? Now, I want to talk about an earthquake in Japan. Okay? This earthquake is off the southeast coast of Kyushu, Japan. This is a 4.0 earthquake, 64 kilometers east-southeast of Kumano, Japan. A 4.0 moderate quake. This also is a 379 kilometers deep, a semi-deep earthquake. As a result of this 4.0, they're probably also going to see a 4.8 earthquake, a moderate 4.8 earthquake here in the area of Japan, the region area of Japan. USGS is also not showing any earthquakes over in the Sea of Japan near Noto Peninsula. Again, USGS is omitting information. Omission is a lie. If one of our children was to omit anything from our knowledge, it would be a lie. If I, as a police officer, didn't put everything on a police report, I failed to mention something important on a police report, I would be fired for it. They would discipline me and be fired. I'd be fired. Folks, let me tell you something. The people, and I'm talking management, at USGS should be throttled for what they're doing. Or should I say what they're not doing? They know that there are other earthquakes all over the world that they're failing to tell people about. Even though the earthquakes at Noto Peninsula were small and a 4.0 earthquake, those are measurable earthquakes. And people are feeling those earthquakes. Regardless of whether the USGS wants to talk about them or not. They should be telling everybody. They report 2s and 3s all over the world. Why are they not reporting these earthquakes over in the Sea of Japan today? Because they're too damn lazy to do it. Okay? That's sad to say. Too damn lazy. North of Japan in the Kuril Islands. We again had another large earthquake in the Kuril Islands today, mostly in the center of the Kuril Island region, between Hokkaido, Japan, and Kamchatka Peninsula. This was a 5.1 earthquake, a fairly shallow earthquake at 43 kilometers deep. Interesting enough. Now, before I go into the United States, I want to make a stop over in China first. Okay? Over in the border region of India and China area, a 4.3 moderate earthquake there, 10 kilometers deep. Then over into the Mideast in Iraq. That's not saying there are no earthquakes over in Afghanistan or Tajikistan. There are. USGS is not talking about those. Those earthquakes in Afghanistan and Tajikistan are 4.3, 4.4, and 4.5 earthquakes. Over in Iraq, a 4.0 in Mandali, Iraq, 10 kilometers deep. Now, I mentioned already 2 earthquakes 10 kilometers deep. 3. Folks, there are several cases where USGS would say how deep the earthquake is as a 10-kilometer deep earthquake. One is they don't know how deep the earthquakes are. I'm sorry to say, USGS in this region has no reason to report a 10.0 earthquake unless it is. However, USGS has, in many cases, and I'm going to say probably 80% of the cases worldwide every day, USGS is labeling it a 10.0 depth earthquake. They know how deep it is. They don't want anybody else to realize how strong an earthquake it is. This is probably a lot stronger than a 4.0. Now, as a 10.0 earthquake, people felt it. A 4.0 earthquake, 10 kilometers deep, they felt it. Now, if it was deeper, it might have only been felt as a 4.0. If it was a shallow earthquake, as they're pointing out, it would have been felt stronger, a much stronger earthquake. Seven Reagan is in the chat saying, "Hello, Ron, been gone for a while. Glad to be back. Missed your reporting. Keep up the great work." Thank you so much. We appreciate that. I'm glad you're back. I hope you're back for a good long time. Now, over in the area of Turkey and Syria, again, USGS is not showing any earthquakes there at all. There are over 70 earthquakes, 4.5 and below, in the Turkey-Syria border region. A year ago, this time last year, there was a 9.0, 10.0 earthquake that happened here in the Turkey-Syria border region. That is why there's so many earthquakes. But USGS is not reporting any earthquakes at all. They're asleep at the switch. 70 earthquakes only in the area of the Turkey-Syria border region. On top of that, there's another 15 to 20 earthquakes all over Turkey. North, south, and central Turkey that they're not reporting. Over in western Turkey, there are about 4 or 5 earthquakes right there. They're not reporting. Most of those are 1.0, 1.7, 1.8, 2.0 earthquakes. But they're earthquakes nonetheless. And yet USGS even reports some of those. 1.0 to 1.9 are considered to be tremors. USGS is not saying one word about those seismic events. We go over in the Durkle Islands just west of Turkey. Those islands belong to Greece. There's a handful of earthquakes in the Durkle Islands today. We also have 2 or 3 earthquakes, I believe it was, over around Crete, and at least 15 earthquakes in Greece. USGS shows 1. They're showing 1 4.2 moderate earthquake in Kira, Greece, K-I-R-R-E, Greece. Actually, K-I-R-R-A, Greece, Kira, Greece. They report this as a 10.0 magnitude, 10.0 kilometer depth. Okay? There's about 15 earthquakes in Greece that they're not telling us about. USGS is talking about a 4.1 today, or showing a 4.1 earthquake in Bosnia-Herzegovina. 4.1 depth, 10 kilometers, or 4.1 magnitude, and a 10.0 kilometer depth. Why are they not reporting the earthquakes in Croatia, in Romania? Inquiring minds want to know. Why are they not reporting the 25 earthquakes in Italy? 25 earthquakes in Italy, most of those in central Italy. Why are they not saying anything about that? Incredible. Incredible. Rob52 just put up our PayPal location. I appreciate that very much. And I'm going to just take a pause here and tell you what's going on. I'm on my phone because I don't trust either of the computers, my laptop or my other computer here. They're not strong enough, apparently, to do this program any longer. So I'm doing this program on my phone. If anyone wants to help me raise money towards getting another laptop, I'd appreciate it very much. It would mean a great deal to me, and hopefully mean a great deal to you as well. We need it to be able to do our reports, and I appreciate all the activity, and I appreciate all the support that you've given us. It means the world to me. It means the world to my family. You guys have also been helping me to keep the doctors off my doorstep. I still owe about $1,500 in doctor's bills. I appreciate all of that as well. Sweet Tooth is asking, why aren't you talking about the 6.3, or the X6.3 solar flare? I will be talking about that. Just give me another few minutes here. We need to talk about that. I have information about some other things that were linked to that flare that I don't believe have anything to do with that flare. We will be talking about that. I appreciate you bringing it up, Sweet Tooth. I really do. Now, they're not reporting any other earthquakes in Europe. That in and of itself is a deadly lie. There are 1s and 2s all over the Alps today. There's 2s and 3s over in Switzerland, Germany, and France. Probably close to a dozen earthquakes between Switzerland, Germany, and France just today. Another 6 earthquakes in Spain that they're not talking about. How about earthquakes over in the Azore Islands just west of Portugal? 2 earthquakes there. And 2 earthquakes out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, right next to the Mid-Atlantic Fault. Incredible as it may seem. We still have earthquakes over in Norway and Sweden. Earthquakes, folks, that we didn't ever see before. The entire Earth is moving. Every one of the tectonic plates is moving. We have an earthquake or actually several earthquakes and tremors over in Iceland that USGS did not even post. Go figure. USBS is only posting 1 earthquake over in Colombia, South America. A 4.6 earthquake, 159 kilometers deep. Still a fairly shallow earthquake. A 4.6 moderate earthquake. However, folks, again, USGS is lying their pants off. A lot more earthquakes than that hit over in South America, along the western coast of South America, the continent. Probably close to 18 earthquakes along the western coast of South America. Another 5 or 6 earthquakes in Central America. Then we want to tell you that there's probably 20 earthquakes in southern Mexico, ranging from right north of Guatemala all the way up north to Puerto Vallarta, all along the coast of Mexico, southern Mexico, and just off the coast of Puerto Rico, or not Puerto Rico, just off the coast of Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Folks, that's a lot of earthquakes. That's a lot of earthquakes. Folks, they're only reporting 1 earthquake in southern Mexico. A moderate 4.7 earthquake that hit in Torero, Mexico. This is still fairly shallow earthquake, 62 kilometers deep, 63 kilometers deep. They're not reporting them. They report 1 earthquake when there's 20 plus earthquakes. They're not reporting 2 earthquakes that happen in the center of the Gulf of California. Both of those earthquakes are moderate earthquakes, 4.4, 4.5 earthquakes on the San Andreas Fault. They're not reporting them. Now, I want to stop for a minute and talk about what's going on with the solar flare. There was a very strong, deadly strong X-class 6.3 earthquake. X-class 6.3. That is a huge solar flare. That is a huge solar flare. Anybody that has been monitoring what's been going on knows exactly what I'm talking about. In the past month, we've now had 4 X-class flares leave the sun. Now, some folks are blaming that flare on a loss of cell phone capability here in the United States. I'm here to tell you that's wrong. It is factually wrong. Why am I saying that? I'm saying it because that X-class flare happened in the daylight area of the world, the daylight facing area of the Earth. Now, if that solar flare had been launched at the Earth and it would have been facing the United States, then we might, and I'm saying might, blame what happened with the solar flares. Or I should say blame the cell phone outage on the solar flare. But I'm here to tell you that's not correct. It's not even correct. I want to give you some factual information that I have obtained early this morning. I want to tell you about that cell phone outage. Folks, like I said, it had nothing to do with that solar flare. Absolutely nothing to do with that solar flare. Most people said it was as a result of the solar flare affecting the AT&T cell towers. Not even. I know there's much speculation, but AT&T isn't being impacted by the X-class 6.3 flare. With the solar flare, like I said, the sunlight side of the Earth would be impacted first. It happened at about 4 a.m. here on the East Coast. There was no sunlight here. On the West Coast, it was 1 a.m. Really dark. And the issue is confined only to the United States right now. It seems more than likely that an overnight software upgrade caused the cell phone towers to go down. Solar flares affect the high frequency communications, not the ultra high frequency communications where the cell phones operate. High frequency communications, I'm talking about 2,000 gigahertz. 2,000 gigahertz. Most cell phones are in the 900 to 1,000 gigahertz range. UHF, not HF. Some police departments, state and federal communications departments operate in the high frequency range. Most police departments, fire departments, and ham radio operators operate in the low frequency or ultra high frequency, UHF. VHF, very high frequency. UHF, ultra high frequency. That's not where the cell phones operate. Okay? Not in the HF. Additionally, any impact on satellite communications would only come with a solar radiation storm, which is not occurring, or a geomagnetic storm, which also is not occurring either. Now, we're not sure what the technical issue is, but AT&T should be better at communicating the issues with its customers. I am a T-Mobile customer. It did not affect me. It did not affect Verizon customers either. So folks, if you had problems with your cell phones, it was mostly an AT&T issue. It had nothing to do with other carriers. It also had nothing to do with the solar flare. Now, you might also remember many low-cost carriers that use AT&T network. And those people will have issues as well. Now, over on Facebook, my Facebook page, and over on our Facebook Messenger groups, I posted a list of low-cost cell phone carriers that use part of the AT&T network. They lease their time from the cell phone towers, from whoever owns the towers. AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, whoever. They don't own their towers. They lease the time on AT&T towers. They might be affected. Lastly, I am not an AT&T customer. I am not in the same boat as those of you that are AT&T customers. Yes, it could happen on other networks if the solar flare had been Earth facing and daylight facing, which it was not. Let me demonstrate this. I want to use my fake crystal ball here. The sun was facing the southern hemisphere. Okay? The United States is up over here in the northern hemisphere. When the X6.3 solar flare went off, it went like this. The flare hit the daylight portion of the Earth, and when it did, it went like this. Any plasma radiation from that solar flare went off into space like this. Went around the Earth, okay? It hit on the southern hemisphere, in the daylight portion of the southern hemisphere, and then it went out like this. It never even reached the night portion of the Earth. Okay? The energy went like this, around and away from the Earth. So folks, there is no possible way that solar flare would have been responsible for those cell towers going down, or your own phones being affected by it. No way. NCWQ says she's a Walmart mobile company. Yes, they have their own issues. Okay? I personally would stay away from Ma Bell. When I'm talking about Ma Bell, I'm talking about AT&T. Same company. Same company. Those of you that had problems with your cell phones, it probably resulted from a software update. They happen a lot. About, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had a software update that hit my phone. I had no choice but to accept it, only because I did not have my phone rigged to not accept the software updates. Now I have. So let me tell you something about software updates as well. Software updates are not meant for customers. The software updates supposedly are supposed to help cell phones within a targeted region. More than likely, those software updates are there to help your cell phone degenerate. Okay? To help your cell phone die. Cell phones are only meant to last for a period of time. And these software updates damage the phones, damage the capability of the phones. It's proven. I've spoken to experts, and I've seen articles written about that. If you're able to disrupt the update of your phone, you can do that. Now, your carrier will try to tell you, oh, you need that, like a hole in your head. Okay? 8 Duck says we have no service at the moment, so no problem. Well, it might still be a problem. Because when you do have service, it might still disrupt your phone. Okay? Because of the software update going from the tower. When you turn your phone back on, it might try to download on your phone still. And it will keep your phone from updating. It will keep your phone from doing its job. Okay? 8 Duck says, shut those phone updates off, y'all. Okay, that's what I'm saying as well. If you can. Some phones won't let you do that. Some phones will not let you do that. Anyway, getting back to these earthquakes, and I mean business when I'm talking about these earthquakes. It's serious. It's serious. First off, I want to stop in Falls City, Texas, south central Texas. We've had numerous earthquakes there. About a week and a half ago, we had a 4.5 in Falls City, Texas. Today, there was another 4.6 earthquake. USGS called it a 3.9. As you know, I don't like USGS when it says 0.9 anything. If USGS has issued an earthquake as something 0.9, it's probably a lot stronger than that. So I'm calling this a 4.0 earthquake, as USGS is calling it a 3.9. A 4.0 earthquake, or even a 3.9, can be largely felt in that region over an expansive area. Because of the geography of that area, the bedrock in the area, okay? They have a huge number of oil and gas pumps in that area. It's right smack, the earthquakes today near Falls City, Texas, they're all sitting in a huge oil and gas pumping operation, oil and gas pumping field. That's why those earthquakes hit today in Falls City, Texas, in and around Falls City, Texas. A 4.0, a 2.1, a 2.0, and another 2.0. That last 2.0 is 16 kilometers away from Falls City. Okay? So that entire area got hit. Why? Oil and gas pumping holes. They drill holes into the ground. Some of those holes go down a little bit and straight. Other holes go perpendicular like this. Other holes go straight down. If the holes go straight down, they could go down 5 to 6 miles deep into the oil and gas producing rock. They pull that oil out. Those man-made drill points, those man-made drill holes attract seismic energy. When the seismic energy comes, it hits that drill point and it fractures the rock at the drill point, causing earth movement. That's why these earthquakes hit today. Seismic energy found those drill points and fractured the rock in all 4 locations around Falls City, Texas. But that's not all, folks. There's more. Let's go almost straight west. Almost straight west and a little bit north. Over to southwestern Texas. There's a pretty large swarm of earthquakes in southwestern Texas. One earthquake is further east than the others. It's a 1.8 tremor in Mentone, Texas, 25 kilometers east of Mentone, Texas. As we go west, a 1.7 tremor, 24 kilometers southwest of Mentone, Texas. Then there is a much larger swarm. Toyah, Texas, a 2.4, a 2.7, a 1.6, and a 2.3, a 1.7 again. And we just got through having another one. If you have a USGS map up on your computer, on your screen, it would be red. There's a 2.1 earthquake there. It just happened. Then we go a little bit northeast. There's still good swarm of earthquakes there. They say these earthquakes are in White City, New Mexico. These are in Texas, guys. This White City, New Mexico is not where these earthquakes hit. I don't know why USGS keeps identifying these earthquakes as in White City, New Mexico. They're not. They're in southwestern Texas, near the border area. One of those earthquakes was a 3.3 small quake. Out to the east, a 1.8 tremor. Just north of the 3.3 is a 1.8 as well. Just north of that, a 1.6. North of there, another 1.6. Straight west from there is another 1.9, 2.0 earthquake. Just north of there is a 1.5 tremor. And that's not all, folks. There's more. Let's go a little bit further west. Still in Texas, a 1.6. A little bit further west, a 1.7. Southwest from there, 1.7. Northwest from there, another 1.7. Folks, there's about 24 earthquakes right here in the Toyah, Texas area. Mentone and Toyah, Texas. That's a good-sized swarm of earthquakes in oil and gas pumping region. All, and I can't say all, each and every one of those earthquakes are in an oil and gas pumping field. Okay? Huge. Huge. When we first started seeing these hit 3 years ago, I had some oil barons that told me, oh, our oil fields don't have anything to do with those earthquakes. But scientists have proven they do. Scientists have proven they do. Anywhere where there's a man-made fault, it doesn't matter whether they're drilling for oil or they're drilling into an active volcano magma chamber. Any drill point, any hole that's drilled into the crust of the earth is susceptible to an earthquake. When seismic energy comes out of nowhere, which it does, it hits those holes. It hits any hole in the crust of the earth. Any hole. And it will fracture those rock in that hole. It could be an earthquake fault. A regular, natural earthquake fault. That seismic energy hits there and fractures the rock, causing that fault to move. That's what's happening here in Texas and even Oklahoma. Okay? That's what's going on. And by the way, over in eastern Oklahoma, Meeker, Oklahoma, a 2.1 earthquake today. This afternoon, 2:51 p.m. this afternoon. Fascinating. Okay? Now, I want to go now over to Southern California. We've given a lot of airtime to the earthquakes happening in the Imperial Valley. USGS has taken numerous earthquakes off the map, which they do to their own detriment. As I pointed out in the past, there are 8 different seismographs located in the Imperial Valley. One in Calipatria, one north of Calipatria on the central east side of the Salton Sea, Bombay Beach. Another one further north at North Shore, Salton Sea. One directly west of Calipatria in Westmoreland. Another one straight south in Holtville, California. Another one just northwest of there in the town of El Centro. A good city, 35,000 people in El Centro. And one north of there in the town of Imperial. 8 different sites, and also one in Salton City on the west central side of the Salton Sea. 8 different seismographs, all of them reporting earthquakes. Not necessarily the same earthquakes either. What we would see on the Calipatria seismogram is about 100 earthquakes and tremors. On the Westmoreland seismogram, we're seeing 2.0, 2.5 earthquakes and a bunch of tremors. On the town of Imperial, the seismograph there, the seismogram would show several minor earthquakes and a bunch of tremors. Probably 100 tremors. The same kind of numbers of tremors on the other seismograms as well. Over on the seismogram from Holtville, probably a good 100 tremors there and probably 5 or 6 minor earthquakes. Over in El Centro, where our friend Juanito lives. Over in El Centro, we're seeing 3.0, 3.5, even 4.0 earthquakes. The Imperial Valley is not done. A week ago Monday, the Imperial Valley had a 5.8 earthquake in El Centro, California. USGS tried to pawn it off as a 4.7. They downgraded to full magnitude, just over full magnitude. How dare they? A lot of people said and told me that they believed that that earthquake was stronger. It certainly was. A 5.8 earthquake. Over 10 times as strong. How dare they? Patricia, we cannot allow you to put that name of that person here in the chat. Demon Catman took it down. I do not want to mention other YouTube creators or even Rumble creators on a chat. We can't be doing that. If you want to tell us about some other creator, send me an email. I have to approve it. It does not go on our chat ever. Sorry. Patricia says, sorry, I apologize. No problem. I'm glad you did it because then we can talk about it to everybody. Do not put any other person's creation or any other company's website on our chat. Number one, YouTube doesn't like it. I particularly don't like it unless I approve it. Okay? I appreciate that. Daniel Ferguson is asking, why does it matter if they downgrade it? Daniel, it's this way. They downgrade it because they do not want us to know the true strength of that earthquake. Why does it matter? Because, folks, earthquakes matter. The strength of the earthquake can kill people. It's lucky that 5.8 didn't kill anybody. There was significant property damage in the Imperial Valley. USGS should be telling us what's going on. They don't want us to know. The politicians, guys, our politicians in California, Washington State, Oregon State, and other states, as well as the federal government politicians, senators and congressmen, have been telling USGS not to report the earthquakes, or if they do, not to be truthful about the size of them, because they do not want anybody to know how strong they are. Because if people knew how strong they are, they would say, I'm out of here. I'm leaving. What would happen then? If people knew that those earthquakes were hitting there and they were getting stronger and stronger and stronger, what is the deal? They would want to leave, right? Absolutely. And it's a proven fact. GOS says, are you talking about the earthquake in Oklahoma? I have. I talked about that quake in Oklahoma. By the way, 2 weeks ago in Oklahoma, there was a 4.5 earthquake there, a moderate 4.5. Now, folks, what is this with? The politicians don't want USGS reporting those earthquakes, so they tell them not to do it or not to report the truth. That way, nobody will leave there. If the people knew the truth, they would move out of that area to get away from the seismic events because they're likely to kill them or kill their family members. So they would leave. If those people left those towns and cities, what would happen? Businesses would close up, wouldn't they? Or maybe even the business owners would leave. As more and more people leave, there's less and less taxes to be paid. With fewer people in those towns and cities, the businesses would pretty much dry up and go away themselves. If there's no business taxes being paid, if the residents are not paying taxes, the cities and towns would cease to exist. If the cities and towns aren't existing, who is going to pay the electric bills? Who's going to keep the street lights and the stoplights going? Nobody. Who's going to pay the taxes to keep the water on and the gas pumping to our homes? Nobody. All that's going to go away. So if you see what I'm talking about, USGS is being told not to report that. Because if people move out of those cities and towns, the tax base dries up. Who's going to pay the salaries of those politicians? Nobody. Nobody. So those politicians will go bye-bye. So those politicians are telling people, or telling USGS managers, don't talk about it. Or don't tell everybody the true truth of how strong those earthquakes are. T-Mac is asking in the chat here, why was I put in timeout? I apologized, and then you did it immediately after. Strange. No, it's not strange. If you said something in the chat, it doesn't belong there. So my mods took it down. I did not see what you said, but my mods have my orders if they see something that doesn't belong to take it down, regardless of whether you apologized or not. So I'm sorry about that, but I'm also not sorry. Okay? NCWQ Explorer puts you in timeout. There's a reason for it. Sanskrit Hicks-Cox is asking, do you have any seismic data? I'm going to ask you, what seismic data are you looking for? Where? Where are you concerned about? I do have seismic data for almost anywhere you can think of. Okay? Richard Smith says a 3.1 hit in the Hawaii region around Pahala, Hawaii. A week ago, Pahala, Hawaii got hit by a 5.8 earthquake. It also was downgraded to a 4.7. A full magnitude downgrade over in Hawaii. Incredible. Incredible. Diane Kalman is asking, anything going on in New York? Only tremors so far in New York. We have had good-sized earthquakes, and I'm talking 2.8 to 3.5 in New York before now. But so far, I'm saying during the past few months, it's only been 1.5, 1.7 tremors. That's all in New York. And even then, the agency, the universities around New York are not reporting it. If you want specific data on seismic activity in New York, you go to the University of New York and you get into their seismological department. Then you go over and click on seismicity, or you click on seismic movement or seismological information. Then you might have to click on seismograms. Okay? That's how you find out about specific issues in your own cities, counties, and states. Go to your state university. Go to their seismological department. Look for either Earth planetary science or look for seismology, seismic activity. And then click on seismograms, and you'll find all kinds of seismograms. Delta Hogs is asking about any movement in Yellowstone. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And even north of Yellowstone. Okay? There's been quite a bit of movement over in Montana and Wyoming. Quite a bit of movement there. Now, folks, USGS also is not talking about everything. They only want to report what's in their own best interest. North of Yellowstone, okay? Well, first, let me tell you about Yellowstone. The Yellowstone magma chamber reaches up to the border of Canada and the United States. The Yellowstone magma chamber is 11 Grand Canyons in size. So the Yellowstone magma chamber encompasses the region just south of the Canadian border and reaches out almost to South Dakota, over through Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado, and Utah, northern Utah. Okay? So if you see earthquakes anywhere in Yellowstone or north of that, or south of that, all the way down into northern Utah, over into eastern Idaho. Those are Yellowstone earthquakes, Yellowstone magma chamber earthquakes. North of Yellowstone, okay, there's a small swarm of earthquakes near Radersburg, Montana, or what they call, Radersburg, Radersburg, Montana. A 2.2 earthquake there, a minor 2.2 earthquake. Okay, but that's not all, folks. There's more. Okay, right next to it is a 0.5 microquake. Now, this is just USGS reporting. On my other app on my phone that I'm not going to get to right now, number one, you couldn't see it. Number two, I want to make sure that I'm showing the chat on my phone. There are a lot more earthquakes around Radersburg, Montana. USGS is showing 2. A 0.5 microquake and a 2.2 minor earthquake right there. Southeast of there happens to be a quarry blast in Butte, Montana. And yes, the quarry blast is in the quarry. But there's not just one, there's 2. One of those is a 1.2 magnitude quarry blast. The other one is a 1.4 quarry blast. The 1.4 quarry blast is a mile deep. The 1.2 quarry blast is also 1 mile deep. Now, depending on the quarry blast can be up to 2 miles deep. I found that out about a month or so ago. But if their supposed quarry blast is, say, a mile or 2 away, there's no way in heck that supposed quarry blast is affiliated with that quarry. Not at all. There could be no link to that. So if they say there's a quarry blast a mile or 2 away, it was not a quarry blast, it's a tremor or a minor earthquake in that area. USGS wants to pawn off earthquakes as much as they can. They call them quarry blasts all the time, and I've caught them doing it. I've caught them doing it. Cold Monkey is asking, are you a Christian? Yes, I am. I've always been a Christian. Now, someone asking, are you a Gulf War, Korean War, Vietnam War veteran? No, I'm not. I was never in the military. My father was a Korean War veteran. I have a lot of friends that served in Korea, Vietnam, in the Gulf. A lot. Some of them never came home. I mourn their loss. I love those men and women. They were some of my best friends. Now, another earthquake northwest of Radersburg. This is a 0.7 microquake in Elliston, Montana. Elliston, Montana. North of there, almost directly north, Lincoln, Montana, 1.6 tremor there. Every one of these earthquakes, folks, are in the Yellowstone magma chamber. These earthquakes are in the Yellowstone magma chamber. I do not believe that any one of these quakes had anything to do with fault zones. Okay? 8 Duck says, surgery is also a veteran. Yes, he is. He's a Navy veteran. I met him when he was in the Navy. Surgery is a good man. Jennifer Amos says, I love listening to you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Now, south of there, south and west of Yellowstone, Challis, Idaho, is on the western side, the western end of the Yellowstone magma chamber. They had a 1.6 tremor today, early this morning, 3:41 a.m. this morning. That was 4.5 kilometers deep, 2 miles deep, down in the Yellowstone magma chamber. Southwest of there in Stanley, Idaho, this is different. This is a 2.3 earthquake. I don't believe this is in the magma chamber. This is in the hilly area of Idaho. There are earthquake faults here. This is a 2.3 earthquake, 9.5 miles deep. 9.5 miles deep, down underneath Stanley, Idaho. Northwest of there, Donley, Idaho. Both of these earthquakes are in central Idaho, north central Idaho. This is a 1.9, 2.0 earthquake, minor earthquake, 10.2 kilometers deep. Folks, this is 5 miles deep. This is an earthquake fault, earthquake, minor earthquake. Nobody felt this. Nobody felt that. Most people will only feel 3.0 small earthquake or larger. If somebody felt this earthquake, they would have to be ultra sensitive. Now, yesterday I showed you a video of a water bottle sitting on my desk yesterday afternoon. Seismic energy that was hitting here in Morganton, North Carolina, caused the water in the water bottle to agitate. And I showed you a telephone video that I made of that agitation. Tremors hitting here in North Carolina. I also showed you seismograms, showing you the seismic activity here in North Carolina. And it wasn't just tremors. Yes, here in Morganton, we had tremors vibrating the earth here. We also had 3.5 earthquakes north and east of here along the coast of North Carolina. Roper, North Carolina. 3.5 small earthquakes. Small earthquakes and tremors all up and down the East Coast. Pennsylvania to the north. All the way south to Georgia, all over. Earthquakes and tremors. There were a bunch of earthquakes in Georgia and also South Carolina. I showed you the seismograms last night. You can go to our video and see that. This whole area is being shaken by the Atlantic Fault. The Mid-Atlantic Fault. Mid-Atlantic Fault. The Mid-Atlantic Fault goes directly down the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, north to south, all the way down to the Antarctic Ridge. The Mid-Atlantic Fault is pushing Europe and Africa in an easterly direction. The Mid-Atlantic Fault is also pushing North America, Canada, and the United States in a south-southwesterly direction. That is why we had earthquakes on the East Coast yesterday. I showed them. I also showed you seismograms on the New Madrid Fault, north to south, over just south of the Great Lakes, all the way down into the Gulf of Mexico. The New Madrid Fault is moving, folks. I showed you seismograms of upwards of 4.0, 4.5 earthquakes happening on the New Madrid Fault. Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, and Arkansas. Earthquakes, not just tremors, earthquakes. Over in north central Arkansas, Ozark Folk Center, where there is a seismograph, a 3.5 earthquake hit there. Okay? Surgery says hearing a new number for the X class 6.3. Again, that happened earlier today. It had nothing to do with a cell phone outage here in the United States. That was strictly AT&T. Okay? Anyway, that's what's going on. Lynn Marie Wallace saying we're waiting for the big one here in the Northwest. It's going to happen, guys. It's going to happen. Let's go up the coast of California from Southern California north, all the way up to Washington State. Lynn Marie, we're going to talk about Washington, Mount Rainier, and Mount St. Helens in just a couple minutes. Stay tuned. And even Mount Hood. Okay? Southern California is getting hit and smacked around quite a bit. San Diego County is getting hit and smacked around. Northeast San Diego County today. This is northeast of Escondido. Population center probably 300,000 today. Lake Henshaw, a 0.6 microquake. Usually we have a lot more earthquakes than that. Tremors and even 2.0 earthquakes hitting at Lake Henshaw. Okay? We showed you earthquakes yesterday down in the Gulf of California and all over the Imperial Valley. And I've talked about the earthquakes down there. Let's go northeast San Diego County. Ocotillo Wells, a 1.0 tremor. North of there, Borrego Springs, a 1.3 tremor. Borrego Springs is in what they call the Anza-Borrego Desert area, which is northeast San Diego County. A lot of earthquakes and tremors there today. 2 1.3s right there in Borrego and Ocotillo. The Anza Gap. The Anza Gap goes from Cabazon, Southern California, all the way into northeast San Diego County in the Anza-Borrego Desert. Okay? Going north, still in northeast San Diego County, a 0.8. They call it Anza here. It's along the San Jacinto Fault. There are plenty of earthquakes up and down the San Jacinto Fault. Plenty of them. A 0.6 again in Anza, going north. Idlewild, a 0.7 there, also on the San Jacinto Fault. Just north of there, Val Vista, California, a 0.7 microquake there. A 0.7 in San Jacinto, California. This earthquake is right on the base of Mount San Jacinto. Right on the base of Mount San Jacinto, right next to the San Andreas Fault. A 0.7 microquake there. Going north, Beaumont, California, a 1.7. Not to be outdone by a 1.6 tremor there as well. That 1.6 tremor just happened on the San Andreas Fault. Just on the east side of that fault in Cabazon, a 2.0 earthquake there. Why am I starting here on the San Andreas Fault? Because, folks, on the southern end of the Cascadia Megathrust Earthquake Fault. The Cascadia Fault Zone connects in what they call the triple junction. I'll show you that in a minute. It connects with the San Andreas Fault. It also connects with what they call the Gorda Escarpment. It's called the triple junction. We'll get there in a minute. Okay, let's go north on the San Andreas Fault. Vincent, California, a 1.2 tremor on the fault. Then we go over near the shore of Los Angeles area. We reported this past week, I believe it was on Monday, we reported tremors and earthquakes in Marina del Rey, California. We also showed Marina del Rey on a seismogram. Earthquakes and tremors on the seismogram. The seismogram was in a seismogram not from the USGS, Caltech, California Institute of Technology. They showed tremors and earthquakes there in Marina del Rey. Marina del Rey and Playa del Rey are right next to each other, literally. So if one earthquake is happening in Marina del Rey or another earthquake happening in Playa del Rey, it's the same kind of place. They'll call it Playa del Rey, but the earthquake will show up at the Playa del Rey seismogram. So we had earthquakes and tremors on Monday in Marina del Rey, and today a 1.5 tremor there as well. Further north, you guys are going to love this one. Another 2.0 earthquake southwest of Malibu, California. This time it was out in the ocean, just south of Malibu. We had a 4.8 earthquake in Malibu this past week. We're still getting seismic energy hitting Malibu today. North of there, along the Santa Ynez Fault Zone, a 1.4 tremor in Carpinteria, California. Wow. 2 tremors over in Ridgecrest today. 2 1.7 tremors in Ridgecrest. Just north of Ridgecrest, along the Little Lake Fault Zone, you're going to love this as well. A 2.4 earthquake in Little Lake, California. And north of there, the Cozo Volcanic Field. A 0.8 tremor being called out by the U.S. Geological Survey. And I will bet you, if I pulled up the seismogram from Cozo Volcano, there would be more than just a 0.8 microquake. There always is. There always is. Going straight north from there, Big Pine, California, 2.3 earthquake. We've seen a 7.1 earthquake hit here in Big Pine, California, 2 years ago. The day before that hit, there was a 7.2 earthquake in southern Mexico. I said within the following 3 days, sometime within the following 3 days after that 7.2 in southern Mexico, that there would be another major earthquake in Southern California. The next day it happened. I called it. A 7.1 earthquake hit in Big Pine, California 2 years ago. Today, a 2.3 earthquake there. Okay? We go south just northeast of the San Andreas. Grapevine. Those of you that have driven the freeways in Los Angeles know what the Grapevine is. The Grapevine is a series of hills. They're located just northeast of the San Andreas Fault. It's probably one of the most dangerous freeway systems you'll ever drive, either going uphill or downhill. It's almost a 9% grade. It's very dangerous, going uphill or downhill. The speeds downhill are upwards of 90 miles an hour. I've clocked them myself. Been there, done that. Patricia says, well, I'm going to dip out for right now. New sub. Thanks for the info. Nice chatting with you all. Check back later. Yes, please check back later. We have not even gotten to the Cascadia Fault Zone. We're headed there right now. Okay. Going up north along the San Andreas Fault, Coalinga, California, a 2.0 earthquake. We had a 5.4 earthquake here in Coalinga, California in the 90s. I just happened to be there because I had friends there. A 2.0 and another 2.0 in Coalinga, California. Going north of there, on the San Andreas Fault, Pinnacles, California. Pinnacles, California had a 1.7 tremor here. Why? Number one, it's on the San Andreas Fault. Number two, the Pinnacles is an area where there's also oil and gas pumping operations going. That is the other reason that there's earthquakes there in the Pinnacles. That is just southeast on the San Andreas Fault, southeast of Monterey Bay, California. Those of you who know where Monterey Bay is, you can now locate this earthquake. Northeast of Monterey Bay, on the Hayward Fault, Alum Rock, California, a 1.0 tremor. Now, that's on the Hayward Fault. The San Andreas Fault is running north in that same area. Then we have the Hayward Fault just to the east. And just east of there, we have another fault, the Calaveras Fault. So 3 major fault zones in Northern California right here. And they're all having earthquakes. They're all having earthquakes. Going further north on the Hayward Fault, Sunol, California, a 1.1 tremor. Fremont, California, a 3.2 earthquake, 3.2 small earthquake. North of there, on the northeast side of San Francisco Bay, Kensington, California, a 1.3 tremor. Going further north, on the north side of San Francisco Bay, Calaveras and the Hayward Fault meet up again. In this area where they meet up, Napa, California, a 1.3 tremor. Napa, California. 3 years ago, we had a 5.0 earthquake in Napa, California. This is a 1.3 tremor there today. Going back to the San Andreas, right on or near the entrance of San Francisco Bay from the Pacific Ocean. Muir Beach, Muir Woods, California, a 1.4 tremor there in just off the coast of Muir Woods, California. Muir Woods, California is a set of redwoods, a big, huge park of redwood trees along the coast of North California, just west of San Francisco Bay. You have to cross from San Francisco across the Bay Bridge over to this area. And within about 5 miles time after you cross over the San Francisco Bay, you come to the Muir Woods. Well, just off the coast is where this earthquake hit, a 1.4 tremor. This was 11 kilometers deep, just shy of 6 miles deep off the coast of California on the San Andreas Fault. On the San Andreas Fault. North of San Francisco Bay, 100 miles north, we come to another bunch of earthquakes. We've shown you this in the past. Those of you that have seen our program in the past know what I'm talking about. It's called the geysers. The geysers is a geothermal facility where man has drilled into the upper magma chambers of a volcano, the Clear Lake volcano. They drilled into the upper magma chambers of that volcano to obtain steam to power turbines at the geysers. The steam comes from tubing running the length from the drill point all the way down to the turbine facility, which generates electricity. Today, there's about 30 earthquakes there. 1.1 all the way up to 2.0 earthquakes here in the geysers facility. 30 plus, I think probably 34 earthquakes today in the geysers. That's normal. That's normal. Anywhere between 20 to 30 earthquakes every day hit the geysers, because each of those drill points also attracts seismic energy. Seismic energy hits that man-made hole in the ground and fractures the rock around that hole, causing the earth to move. Men who drilled into the upper magma chambers of the Clear Lake volcano, and yes, there's a lake there, a huge lake. This happens all the time around volcanoes. Okay? But in this particular case, there's a large group of earthquakes every day, a large swarm of earthquakes here at the geysers facility. There are 80 different turbines there. 80 different turbines that take that steam from the volcano and turn it into electricity that powers electricity to 4 different companies. 2 of them, one is Pacific Gas and Electric, and they've had their issues. You may have read about their issues during the past 3 years. Millions of dollars in fines for what they've done. The other one is Rocky Mountain Power that provides power to Salt Lake City. They take electricity from here in the geysers and ship it to Salt Lake City via high-tension power lines. Okay? 35 earthquakes hitting here in the geysers facility today. We take the San Andreas Fault directly north. It leaves the California land, goes out over the Pacific, and goes back into California again. It goes over to Petrolia, California. Today at Petrolia, California, guess what? A 1.6 tremor and a 2.3 earthquake. USGS is only showing a 1.6 tremor today. But they also had a 2.3 earthquake, minor earthquake. This tremor is 5.8 kilometers deep, just over 2 miles deep on the San Andreas Fault. Now, where this earthquake hit, it's east of the Cascadia subduction zone, which is another earthquake fault that runs north from there all the way north along the coast of Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia, Canada, all the way up to Queen Charlotte Island, British Columbia. Incredible. A long fault. But there's also another fault. It runs directly west from the California coast. It runs about 280 miles out to sea into the Pacific. Then it runs into another fault called the Gorda Ridge. The Gorda Ridge runs in a northeasterly direction, just like this. Then it comes to another fault. It's called the Blanco Fracture Zone. The Gorda Ridge runs into the Blanco Fracture Zone. Just northwest of the Gorda Ridge on the Blanco Fracture Zone, we have a small earthquake today, a 3.4 magnitude small earthquake, 10 kilometers deep, 5 miles deep here. This is in the Cascadia subduction zone region. the Cascadia subduction zone region. If we go north along the Cascadia subduction zone, we get to an area which is just west of Seattle, Tacoma, Washington. This area along the Cascadia subduction zone and the Juan de Fuca plate, just to the west of the Cascadia subduction zone. This is the area where we believe the Cascadia megathrust earthquake is going to happen. It's going to be a 9.0, 10.0 earthquake, a major, major earthquake. The last time it happened was over 234 years ago. It's overdue. It's overdue by a long shot. This earthquake could happen at a moment's notice, honestly. About 2 years ago, Christmas time 2 years ago, it was Christmas Eve. It started about 11 o'clock. We had 3 7.0 earthquakes off the northwest coast of Vancouver Island, British Columbia. 3 7.0 major earthquakes in the Pacific Ocean. That night, we were praying like nothing else. We were praying there would not be a Cascadia megathrust earthquake that night. That would have ruined Christmas Day for millions of people for a very long time. Fortunately for the American people and the Canadian people, the Cascadia megathrust earthquake did not happen that day. Fortunately, it was far enough northwest of Vancouver Island to not cause any problems. It did not even cause tsunamis. But I have never prayed so hard in my entire life, asking the Lord to delay the Cascadia megathrust earthquake, because those 3 major earthquakes could have set it off. They were on the Cascadia subduction zone. It can still happen at any time. That earthquake on the Blanco fracture zone is a 3.4. We've had numerous 3s along the Blanco fracture zone. We've had 5s, 5.1s, 5.5 earthquakes on the Blanco fracture zone off the coast of Oregon. The Blanco fracture zone is off the coast of Oregon. We've had numerous other earthquakes on the San Andreas Fault and on the Juan de Fuca plate. 3.5s and even 5.0s. There has been 2 6s that have hit in Washington state in the past 20 years, causing major damage in Seattle-Tacoma area. Major damage. This 9.0, 10.0 earthquake that is likely to hit just off the coast of Seattle-Tacoma area would cause major, major damage. It would topple large, tall buildings. It would topple the tower there. That wonderful Seattle tower, it would go down. Then, not only would the buildings go down and homes destroyed by the shaking, but the bridges in the Seattle area, as well as all the way up and down the coast, all the way up and down the coast, including down to the Mexican border, would crash. Gil Navo says, numbers 99 thumbs up. Join in. Yes, please give us a thumbs up. I'll talk about that more in a while. But folks, that earthquake is going to topple buildings, knock homes down, flatten homes. And if that's not enough, the bridges in the area going down. Bridges in the Washington, Oregon area, and even some in California, were not built to withstand a 9.0, 10.0 earthquake. And that's what's going to happen. That earthquake will be felt all the way down to Mexico. The Cascadia megathrust earthquake being on the San Andreas Fault or the Juan de Fuca Fault will work its way down to the San Andreas Fault, where the San Andreas Fault, the Gorda Escarpment, and the Cascadia subduction zone meet. The Cascadia subduction zone will trigger the San Andreas Fault. And all the homes, businesses up and down the fault, all the way down to Southern California, will be hurt. That seismic energy is going to go up and down the fault. By the time it reaches the Mexican border, it might only be an 8.0, which is still very dangerous and a very major earthquake. How many major cities are there? Between Northern California all the way down to San Diego, we have San Francisco and all the other subsidiary cities around there. We have Santa Barbara and all the major cities between San Francisco Bay and Santa Barbara. How about Los Angeles County? All the cities just west of the San Andreas Fault will also be affected. The strength of the San Andreas Fault hitting there is going to activate the ancillary faults in the Los Angeles Valley, triggering them, including the Newport Inglewood. The Newport Inglewood Fault goes out into the ocean off of Los Angeles. It meets up with another fault, the Rose Canyon Fault, and that runs down into San Diego County. So that could trigger the Rose Canyon Fault. But folks, that's not all. The San Andreas Fault continues to go south and more inland. It runs down the eastern side of LA, Orange County, into the Imperial County. That seismic energy is going all the way into the Imperial County and down into Mexico. That seismic energy is going to rip up San Diego County. It's going to rip up the entire Imperial County and everything in between. It's going to be very dangerous. Demon Catman says a 4.6 in the northern Columbia, depth 65 kilometers. There was a large earthquake, a 5.0 in northern Columbia today. That's just an aftershock. I thank you, Demon Catman, this wonderful information. Thank you. Tommy Johnson's asking, where can I send a check? I don't use credit cards online, if I can help it. If you want to use credit card, you can go over to PayPal and send it through PayPal. Right after I get off the air tonight, I will put up a PayPal location. And in fact, guys, Don Patoka just put up, our moderator, Don Patoka just put up our USPS, our Postal Service address. You can send us a card and a letter and wrap that check up in a letter or put it in the middle of a card and send it to our P.O. Box. P.O. Box 422, Valdese, Valdese, North Carolina. Zip code is 28690. Thank you for that. We also have 2 PayPal locations. You can send us money through our PayPal locations. We appreciate that. 8 Duck says Ron has a P.O. box and a PayPal, etc. If everyone were to donate $5 each, he'll be able to get a new computer and show the U.S. seismograms again. Not just U.S., but international seismograms. We've done that. And I appreciate that, Ducks. We really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for that. Tommy Johnson says, I pledged $200. Oh my gosh, that would be wonderful. Thanks so much, Tommy. That's wonderful. God bless you for that. God bless you for that. That means so much. Bless your heart. Anyway, folks, getting back to San Andreas, or the Cascadia Megathrust earthquake. It's going to be a major 9.0, 10.0 quake. But what the earthquake shaking doesn't take down, we have another problem. When the earth shakes, it causes the water table to rise in loamy, sandy soil. So anyone around the coastline of the entire West Coast will find you sinking in the sand. Power poles, light posts, cars, buildings, homes, sinking into the sand. That's going to happen. But there's something else too. Within 15 or 20 minutes after the first shaking stops, Olivia said she sent $5 as a test. Olivia, I can't tell until I get off the program. I'm sorry. But I will let you know tomorrow. Okay? Richard Smith says quicksand. Yes. The water table rises and it gets into that loamy soil and it turns into quicksand. That's bad. Tommy Johnson says, I will be checked from Reno mail tomorrow. It's a promise. Thank you so much for that. Anyway, guys, what's going to happen after that earthquake shaking stops? The water is going to run away from the shoreline and go out to sea. So you're going to see a major expanse of sand that you haven't seen in a very long time. But 20 to 30 minutes after the earthquake stops, guess what's going to happen? Besides the aftershocks. Yes, there will be aftershocks galore. That water that ran away from the shoreline is going to come back. Because what is going to happen off the shoreline when that 9.0, 10.0 earthquake happens? The bottom of the seafloor is going to drop like this. The seawater is going to rush to fill that void, isn't it? That's why the seawater is going to rush away from the shoreline to fill that void. Within 15, 20, 30 minutes after the earthquake, we're going to have a major tsunami. Not just one wave, but multiple waves. It could be 30 plus waves. We don't know. But we're going to have massive tsunamis up and down the entire West Coast. Probably from Alaska south to San Diego. Massive tsunamis. Because again, the Cascadia Megathrust seismic zone connects and will trigger the San Andreas Fault, which further exacerbates the entire coastline of California. But the tsunami comes in, not just to Washington, Canada, Oregon, Alaska, but to California as well. A major tsunami, multiple waves coming into shore, anywhere from 50 to 150 feet high. Tsunamis. Guess what? It's a proven fact. Science has proven it. Diane Kelman is asking me, do I think it will happen very soon? Possibly. Even the scientists are saying it could happen within the next 50 years. I honestly think it's going to be within the next 15 to 20, max. Max. That's why the USGS is doing what they're doing. They don't want to be honest with anyone, to let anybody have any kind of idea that this is going to happen. Yet that's exactly what's going to happen. I promise you, it's going to happen. When? We don't know exactly, but it's going to happen. Alaska is also going to be affected. The Cascadia subduction zone goes up to Queen Charlotte Island. It's going to be huge. Don Patoka says if they all move out, then there's not going to be any tax money coming in, right? Right. If there's no tax money coming in, the politicians are going to be out of a job. That's why they're telling the USGS not to say a word. Or if they do, not to report everything going on. Let me talk about earthquakes really quick in the Pacific Northwest. Today, a 3.4 small earthquake hit 13 kilometers east of Lake Marcel, Stillwater, Washington. This is not the first time we've had seismic energy hitting that part of Washington. We had a 4.5 there either a year and a half ago. I reported on it. So far, this is the largest earthquake we have. However, guess what? I know for a fact if I looked at seismograms, which I have not had a chance to do today, guess what? There are 3.0, earthquakes hitting on Mount Rainier and Mount St. Helens. Promise. Just south of Mount Rainier, USGS is reporting a 0.5 microquake in the foothills of Mount Rainier to the south. I promise you there are tremors, microquakes and tremors, and 3.5 earthquakes hitting Mount Rainier right now. They've hit today. USGS not showing a darn word about it. Southwest of Mount St. Helens, a 0.4 microquake there. They're also not showing any other earthquakes at Mount St. Helens. But I promise you, there are microquakes, tremors, minor earthquakes, and small earthquakes hitting Mount St. Helens today. USGS not saying a darn word about it. If I were to look at seismograms, for example, the seismogram, the HHN seismogram from either Emerald Ridge or Rainier Camp Sherman, I would see the amount of magma coming into Mount Rainier today. There's a lot. At Mount St. Helens, if I was to look at the seismograph called SEP, the seismogram from the SEP seismogram, we looked at the HHN, or not the HHN, the HHN would say or tell us part of it, but if we looked at the BOD 0015, I think it is, the seismogram there, that September lobe, the SEP September lobe, you would see plenty of seismic activity, plenty of magma coming into Mount St. Helens. Always. Always. Mount St. Helens is busier than USGS ever thought of showing. They will never show exactly what's going on. Back in 1980, USGS was showing some small tremors and occasional small quake around Mount St. Helens. They immediately ordered the area around Mount St. Helens to be evacuated, evacuation area. Then things calmed down for a short while. So USGS lifted the evacuation order. People came back in, including residents and one scientist, one seismologist. He was killed when Mount St. Helens erupted in 1980. Fact. In 2003 or 4, whatever it was, Mount St. Helens erupted again. This time not so powerful, but a good sized eruption anyway. People were not killed because there was an evacuation order there. USGS again is not showing everything that's going on. I don't believe they ever will. They don't have the balls to do it, excuse my French. They do not have the huevos to do it. They do not want to report it because then everybody will leave. There will be no one to pay taxes in Amboy or Ashford, Washington, or any place else. People would leave. When this volcano erupts, either Mount St. Helens or Mount Rainier, there will be an ash cloud that will spread for hundreds of miles, thousands of miles. It's happened before. At the time the Cascadia megathrust earthquake happened over 200 years ago, there was a sailor out on a sailing ship off the coast of Washington. He saw either Glacier Peak or Mount Rainier erupting. You can't have volcanoes unless there's subduction. The Pacific Plate, the Farallon Plate, the Juan de Fuca Plate are subducting underneath the North American continent. They're taking a deep dive into the depths underneath North America. Subduction causes volcanoes. Subduction causes volcanoes. It also brings more and more magma to the volcanoes. There's going to be an eruption at Mount Rainier and or Mount St. Helens very soon. And I'm not counting out Mount Hood either. 2 years ago, there was an eruption, there was no eruption. 2 years ago, on the southern side of Mount Hood, at Government Camp. Government Camp is a camp there. It's got a parking lot there at the base of Mount Hood, on the southern side of Mount Hood. There's a bunch of buildings, and you can camp there. It's called Government Camp. 2 years ago, there was a series of earthquakes. 100 plus, I think it was about 150, 175 earthquakes hit Government Camp within a 24-hour period. USGS issued a yellow advisory, warning planes to stay out of the area, warning residents to move out of the area because they feared a possible eruption at Mount St. Helens. A few days later, they canceled the advisory and let people return to the area. So far, there's been no such event happening lately, but they have had a series of tremors and minor earthquakes all around Mount Hood in the last 2 years, even today. Mount Hood, Sisters Volcano, Newberry Volcano, Crater Lake, Mount Shasta, and Mount Lassen are all showing signs of a near eruption. They're all showing signs of a possible eruption, and I'm just putting the warning out. Everyone needs to be aware of what's going on. It's going to happen. USGS and Caltech have shut down the seismographs at Shasta Mountain, Mount Shasta. They shut them down. Occasionally, they'll show just minor tremors, and that's all. Mount Lassen, they're more bold. Mount Lassen, they're showing 3.0, 3.5 earthquakes and a bunch of tremors as well, and minor earthquakes. That's Mount Lassen. Mount Lassen, I think, erupted about 1919. It's overdue for eruption now. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I'm just telling you what's going to happen. Today in Alaska, there are over 60 earthquakes in Alaska. Over 60 earthquakes. USGS typically does not even show that many. They just don't. There are 60 earthquakes in the Gulf of Alaska today. A 3.3 and another 3.3 in the Gulf of Alaska. Over along the coast of Alaska, the peninsula, Old Ililama volcano has a barrel of swarms of volcano or swarms of earthquakes. Old Ililama volcano. It has been steaming. Another volcano north of there, Mount Redoubt, is getting hit with earthquakes now. 3.2, 2.1, 1.5, and another 2.0. South of Mount Redoubt, a 1.0, Pedro Bay. 1.2, Happy Valley. That is south of Mount Redoubt. There are other volcanoes also in Alaska. They're showing signs of eruption as well. You can go to the Alaska Volcanic Observatory, and you can go and pull seismographs from almost every volcano. Yes, they've shut off some seismographs. Other seismographs do not exist at some volcanoes, but you can get a good idea of what's going on in Alaska. Now, south of Arctic Circle, Rampart, Alaska, just south of the Arctic Circle, a 2.0 earthquake, minor earthquake. Also, just barely northwest of there, Allakaket, Allakaket, Alaska, Allakaket, Alaska, a 1.5 tremor. Then over in the hand of Alaska, to the left, to the west, is another earthquake. This one is near Deering, Alaska, Deering, Alaska, Deering, Alaska. A 2.6 earthquake hit at 9:04 Eastern Time today. Alaska's had over 60 earthquakes today. It's going to happen. Over to the west, over at Kamchatka Peninsula today. I didn't tell you about that after I told you about the Kuril Island earthquake. Kamchatka Peninsula, a 4.7 earthquake. Southern Kamchatka Peninsula, and another 5.1 just north of there. It's happening, guys. That large energy stretching from down in Indonesia, the Philippines, 5.0 in the Philippines, and USGS not showed a dang earthquake in Indonesia. How dare they? They're lying through their freaking teeth. All that energy is going to go along the west of the Pacific, the eastern side of Asia. It's going to go north. It's going to go up into the Kamchatka Peninsula like we see today, a 5.0 earthquake. It's going to go across the Aleutian Island fault zone over into Alaska. There's enough seismic energy holed up in the Gulf of Alaska to be very dangerous. I fully expect a 7.0 major earthquake to happen in Alaska soon. It's happened before. In the peninsula of Alaska, we had a 7.2, a 7.87, and an 8.7 earthquake in the Alaska Peninsula 3 years ago. We covered those earthquakes. It's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. I promise you. Hawaii has not stopped hitting as well. We've had small, minor earthquakes hitting over in Pahala today. All over Pahala. And out to sea off the coast of the Helena Slump. A 2.5 earthquake out there. Further out in the Pacific to the southeast. We've had a small swarm of earthquakes there. There's a volcano out there in the Pacific. Nalahue, Hawaii. Nalahue volcano. A 2.1, a 2.4, a 2.7, a 3.3, and a 2.9. That volcano is southeast of Hawaii. It's going to erupt too. There's magma out there causing those earthquakes. It's going to erupt. It's probably going to erupt fairly soon. I don't know for sure. I'm just saying. Okay? No, it's probably not going to hurt anybody in Hawaii. However, any eruption is probably going to be an undersea eruption. So there's going to be floating lava fragments along the ocean surface. Okay? There is one earthquake over in Leilani Estates today. It's a 1.7 tremor, Leilani Estates. Why? Because if you remember when Kilauea almost erupted 4 years ago, the magma or the lava had come up just under the rim of the volcano. Then all of a sudden the lava disappeared. It left a hard shell floor, a caldera, in Kilauea volcano. The magma disappeared underneath it. As a result, the weight of that heaviness of the lava that had solidified, leaving that caldera, collapsed inside the volcano, down to the bottom of the volcano. The lava left. It went out somewhere in Hawaii. Scientists didn't know for sure where it went. But there was also another volcano southeast of there called Pu'o. Both volcano lava disappeared. It went out into the northeast rift zone of the Big Island. Fern Forest and Leilani Estates. Miles and miles of lava. Fissures are opened up. Fissures opened up. Great big, huge gaping holes pouring hot, molten lava out of those. Some of that lava created new lava beds on the coast, giving the Big Island more land. Leilani Estates, fissures opened up there. A total of 24 fissures opened up in Fern Forest and Leilani Estates. 1,500 homes disappeared, burned down, bulldozed over by hot, red-hot lava, displacing hundreds of people, maybe upwards of thousands of people. Homes destroyed. Some of those fissures are now named volcanoes. They're named volcanoes now. They have craters and cones now. There's still activity out there. The earthquake, the seismic energy over in the Leilani Estates is proof of it. The magma is causing those earthquakes out there. Northwest of that earthquake there, in the Fern Forest, is a 1.4 tremor there. Magma induced. Magma induced. There's other volcanoes also having earthquakes, but again, the United States Geological Survey doesn't want us to know it. Mauna Loa is getting hit with earthquakes, minor and small earthquakes. Mauna Kea to the north of there also is getting hit with earthquakes, not tremors. Well, they're getting hit with tremors too, but they're getting hit with measurable earthquakes. And there's another volcano over there on the western side, Hualalai Volcano. There at Hualalai Volcano, we're just seeing tremors, fortunately. But Kilauea, Mauna Loa, and Mauna Kea are actually getting hit pretty well. Just promising you that. It's happening. Now, folks, I didn't want us to go over 2 hours, and we've gone past that. I'm sorry about that. Right now, we do not have any musical video before our program starts or after it. Do you guys have any more questions? I know I've answered questions during this podcast. I'm willing to answer a few more questions if you're here and having more questions. 8 Duck says, anyone living near the coast should know their elevation. Absolutely right. You should know your elevation. You should know exactly where you're at, because where you're at is going to determine what's going to happen. Okay? 8 Ducks is saying everyone living near the coast should know their elevation above sea level and their evacuation routes. There's a reason why I moved where I'm at. I am over 1,200 feet above sea level where I'm at. 1,200 feet above sea level. I don't believe there will be a tsunami that will be able to reach me, fortunately. So we're going to be fairly safe. But 3 years ago, 1 year before I got here, there was a 5.0 earthquake northwest of where I live in Sparta, North Carolina, a 5.1 earthquake. And I've talked about it before. But again, the Atlantic plate is pushing the North American continent, where I live, Canada and the United States, pushing the North American continent in a southwesterly direction. That's why we're getting earthquakes here on the East Coast. I fully expect to have a 5.0 earthquake hit somewhere in my area. 2 years ago, we had a 4.5 earthquake just west of here. They said it was in Morganton, but it wasn't. It was just west of Morganton in the hills, the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. It's going to happen, almost assuredly. But I don't think we're going to be having any danger here. CC December 2018 is saying, is Sacramento in any danger? You're going to be in as much danger as almost anybody. You already seen massive winds and rain during the past 2.5 weeks. It's going to happen again. It is. Plus, you're going to get some of that ash from Lassen after it erupts. Okay? There's also volcanoes down there in California near where you live. Okay? There's earthquake faults hitting around Sacramento. I've seen it happen. I've been there. I know where these earthquake faults are. You need to get to know your area. You need to get to know your area. Because what is going on is you're going to see these earthquakes hit and wonder why. The agency's not going to tell us. They don't want us to know. Producer Authentic is asking, a Carrington event triggered earthquake? Possibly. Possibly. It would depend on the magnetic field. A Carrington event is an electromagnetic pulse, either from an atomic weapon or from the sun. And yes, it could happen. It could happen. It could happen. Will it? Possibly. Possibly. Any other questions? That was a good question. I appreciate that. I appreciate all the earthquakes, all the questions that you've given us tonight. It means a great deal to me. It means you're listening. You want to know more information. And I'm going to give you that information. Always. Canito Warrior says, CME, EMP different? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. An EMP is electromagnetic pulse. A CME is a coronal mass ejection of plasma from the sun going out into space. The coronal mass ejection could have an effect on our magnetosphere. The plasma radiation penetrating the magnetosphere, causing a geomagnetic storm. Okay? An electromagnetic pulse probably will not cause a geomagnetic storm. Rather, it would penetrate the magnetosphere and go directly into the atmosphere of the Earth, shutting down electricity all over the world. Yeah, all over the world. Sending us all back into the 19th century or 18th century. Okay? Linda Covington saying, no political views, please. Just a few minutes ago, we had a lady that put up a political post about free Palestine. Please don't put that up here. Okay? Political posts like that have no business here. Okay. Maria, I'm asking right now for my mods to take down Maria Shirazad's post, Free Palestine. Okay. Please, no political posts here. If I want to talk about politics, I'll invite you to talk about politics. Political views, when I want to show you political views, I'll talk about it. And we'll talk about it here. Okay? 8 ducks, there are 2 of them. If there's another political post there, take it down, please. Okay? Any other questions here? All right. Audrey's asking, did you have a good day today? I did. I worked hard around here. I did a lot of work here trying to get our computers to work to do these broadcasts. And I decided rather than fight with the computers, I'll just come here. Producer Authentic is asking, is an electromagnetic pulse a natural source? Usually it is. However, it could be from a nuclear weapon. Surgery 68 says next time ban. Absolutely. Don't let those people continue. We can't. All right, guys, if you don't have any more questions, I'm going to sign out here. We've been here now over 2 hours, and I apologize for that. I wish you the best of luck with everything, guys. May God bless you. May God be with you. Folks, I see a lot of information here that I'd love to share with you. Maybe tomorrow night we'll talk more about spiritual awareness and spiritual preparation. I will talk about that. Kanita Warrior says lots of equipment can't handle the inrush of electrical current. That's exactly it. EMPs will shut down our cars. Many cars are run by computers. They'll fry the computers. They'll fry the electrical parts of the car. Cars and trucks, tractors, everything gone. Okay? Gina says what happened? Everything. We talked about it during this podcast. Go back and watch it from the beginning. If you want to know what we talked about, watch it from the beginning. Yes, there is pertinent information here. Okay? Kanita Warrior says batteries, everything. That'll be fried. Be fried. All right, guys, have a wonderful night. God be with you until we meet again. We will see you on the other side. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for helping each other. There's been a lot of people helping each other here and helping me as well. God bless you. God be with you till we meet again. We'll see you tomorrow night on Friday night, Emergency Preparedness tomorrow night. Have a good night. Is there any chance of radiation fallout from an EMP? Yes. If it's a nuclear weapon, yes, absolutely. Plasma radiation from the sun, yes. Take care, everyone. God bless you. God be with you till we meet again. Good night, everybody. Much love.